Hello and welcome to episode number 289. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. This is the third and final of 3 interviews in which Dev Ramcharan from Aruka Career Coaching helps you optimize and boost your career. In this interview, we focus on the late career phase and also touch a bit upon consulting. You learn that the late career is really the peak of your experience, knowledge, and wisdom, as well as the money you earn. But at the same time, this is also the moment to think back to the time when you started out in your career, and now you need to help out and mentor an eager young project manager at the start of his or her career. The one unexpected topic that you will also hear about is adversity, in the sense of getting laid off or maybe overlooked for a promotion during any of the stages in your career. Dev shows you that you can use adversity as your ally to move your career forward. And then Dev closes with his suggestions for a structured approach to personal growth. And after all of this, let me repeat my recommendation for you one more time. You will get the most out of this series of interviews if you listen to them in sequence, no matter if you are currently in your early career, mid-career, or late career. And Dev's career optimization package can be found on the PM Podcast website. Just go to pm-podcast.com/career and download the free version first. Are you ready? Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Dev Ramcharan, founder and lead coach of Aruka Career Coaching.
Hello, Dev, and welcome back to the Project Management Podcast.
It's wonderful to be back again. Thank you so much for having me, Cornelius.
So this is our third interview about career optimization. We have seen our fictitious project manager move through their early career into the early mid-career and then into the late mid-career. And obviously we are now moving into the late career. And those of you who say, oh, I'm not in the late career, I don't have to listen to this yet, I could just skip this, please don't. Because a big part of what Dev is going to be talking about today is adversity and the use of adversity. What do you do if you get laid off? And we're also going to look at a simple, structured approach for personal growth. And these 2 items, they're going to be so important to you no matter in what stage of your career you are. But right now, we are going to focus on the late career stages first. So in our last interview, we ended with a late mid-career. There, our project manager moved into the program manager, senior program manager, or senior PMO manager role. What's the next step here, Dev? Where are we going in the late career stages?
Chances are in the late stage of your career, you are one of 2 or 3 things. Now, you might move, and remember, this is assuming that the individual, she wants to progress to more senior roles in the organization. At this point in time, she may be the director of a project management office or project management organization or subdivision. Or she might have moved to the VP of project services or the VP of corporate services that might include project services together with IT and others, depending on how it's all bundled together. There are some things that are important to remember at this stage. It's your peak period for your experience, knowledge, wisdom, and your wage. This is a time in your career where you need to start thinking seriously about how to give back what you can, to maximize your opportunities for mentoring younger colleagues, or some of your colleagues who might be your age, but they need some special support, to do volunteer work, public service work, community support, and not-for-profit and corporate board work. I'm on 2 nonprofit boards of directors right now, and it's something that I really find, it's very, very satisfying and very fulfilling. And you might think to yourself, though, give back? Nobody gave much to me as I was going through my career. What am I giving back to? Well, if it's not giving back, then just give. There is an inherent value in building us as human beings as we share our knowledge, as we give something to the people that are around us. And it'll make you feel good. If anything, it'll at least make you feel good. In your late career, be committed to building sustainable and flexible organizational models. But make sure also that you're building balanced teams. Know the impact of the example that you're setting. I know at earlier stages, our example is always affecting other people, but at this stage, it has to be the right example. And a key attribute of that is the ability to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I screwed up. I shouldn't have talked to you that way, or I shouldn't have done this or that. If we don't know how to do that, then there's a key series of lessons in life we've not really gotten to the maturity stage to be able to have learned that are fundamental to our growth as human beings. Think past the frustrations of the moment to the possibilities of the future and aim your organization at that future, at sustainability. Demonstrate mastery in diplomacy in the organization at this stage. You should not be known for warfare and fighting. You're not a general. I don't care what Sun Tzu says in The Art of War. You should be avoiding war. That is one of his principles. What you need to do is demonstrate the art of building peace, mastery in diplomacy. Remember what people remember when you're gone. It wasn't how smart you were. It wasn't how eloquent you were. What they remember is how you treated them. Understand the value and the dangers of communications. Make sure you are communicating appropriately with your team, but understand too, there are some things you cannot tell them, and be okay with that. Be okay with that. Avoid terror, warfare, petty empire building, and the stupidity that comes with egocentrism. And I say that because it is such a danger in North American life, where I am and where many of you that are listeners are. Becoming egocentric and full of ourselves and full of our sense of our self-worth is something that doesn't only make a fool of us, it damages our careers and the people around us. Empower your people and be adept at getting obstacles out of their way. Your career at this stage is very much about their career, not just your own. You might, at this stage, choose to not be someone employed by an organization, but to go into consulting. That's a pretty rich landscape of opportunity. The risks and the potential are high. You could make all kinds of money, but there are also very high risks associated with it, unless you're able to manage those risks and build mitigation or acceptance or whatever kinds of risk management approaches are appropriate to those risks. Find a mentor who has deep experience as a consultant. Be totally adept at client relationship management in everything that you do as a consultant, because it's about the referral. It's about the next contract or the contract extension. And if you're somebody who works well with people in an organization, who works with empathy and respect and efficiency, who supports and understands the constraints of the organization and works within them, you will be deeply valued as a consultant. Ensure that you've got the right sponsor. If you don't, you're not going to be successful. If your sponsor is a vice president who is on the way out, so are you. Make sure that you have a good relationship with the sponsor and that that is the right sponsor for the kind of work that you're taking on. Understand the business problem that your project is solving. What are the key drivers? What are the things which initiated this particular project conceptually? What's it trying to do? Understand who the organizational decision makers are and the key stakeholders. Also, the key resources that you're dependent on. You know that guy over there who sits in the corner and doesn't talk to anybody, and who is the one single person who has been there for 25 years and knows every nook and cranny of the legacy system? You better buy him coffee and donuts as often as you can, because that is a key stakeholder. You may need to rely on him to manage a migration or a system change, or to be able to do a system upgrade. Ignore the urge, even though you will be sorely tempted to trample over the organization to achieve your goals. Remember, one of the people you step on can become a senior person at another organization, and they will remember who you are and what you did when you go there looking for work. You can become a one project success story if you ignore this advice. Back in the Y2K days, I remember the Y2K people. Some of you may not even have been born then. But the Y2K projects were about year 2000. And apparently, because of the fact that certain systems were not built to calibrate or to show measurement or to track anything beyond 2000, elevators were going to fall from the tops of buildings down to the bottom, planes were going to fall out of the sky, and so on. There were Y2K consultants I recall in that early stage of my career who didn't care anything about the staff. They were all about the money and achieving their goals. We never forgot them. Many of them never found work again after that. Build the kind of relationships your client in your client organization that you can leverage for referrals in the future, and leave a trail of successful projects and positive collaborations behind you, not a trail of bodies. So I'll turn it back over to you now.
So we've seen our project manager start out in the early stages of the career, then move on to the mid-career, and now we've just ended it in the late career. And we've taken your template along with us and hopefully filled it in very regularly and updated it. How important is the career optimization template that you've provided to our listeners to me in my late career as a consultant?
I think one of the tools that I would highly recommend that you make really good use of, you can use it often earlier as you go to different jobs, is the Career Opportunity Analyzer. And I built that out of frustration for myself because I thought, look, I'm trying to gauge whether a job I'm going after is worth going after. Well, what are the kinds of dimensions that I would use to measure that? Now, what I have not put in there is scores and weightings and so on and so forth. So if there is some kind soul who's willing to do that for me, I would be over the moon delighted. But what that tool at least gives you is the ability to be able to compare more than one opportunity to each other so that you can determine which is the right job for me to go after or opportunity to accept, or which is the right contract as a consultant for me to go after as I gauge and evaluate. The second thing is at this late stage of your career is keep your career journal going. It is a perpetually useful and evergreen kind of document. And there are others too, likewise, that you can continue to use. But use the package and just use your imagination and throw out what you don't need. But remember, you might need it later on down the pipe.
I promised the listeners at the beginning that even if you're not in the late stages of your career, you should listen to this because it's going to be interesting and valuable for you when we move on to adversity and also the simple structured approach for personal growth. So let's go ahead and move on to adversity. First of all, a definition, Dev. What do you mean by adversity?
Okay, so adversity is something that could go seriously wrong in your career. So I'll give you a couple of definitions. It might be getting passed over for a promotion. It might be getting terminated or laid off. It might be being deep sixed in some other way or the other. You get marginalized, pushed off to the side, ignored, stuck in a hole. It's an unlimited variety of things that can happen based on your individual experience and the nature of the setbacks that you might face. These things can have the effect of ruining you. They can destroy your confidence, or they can put you into a professional tailspin and a crisis, or they can rejuvenate and breathe new life into stale careers. And we all get to the point where our career, if we're not challenged enough, is getting a little bit stale. The one warning I would tell you, which is another aspect that drives adversity, is don't stay in the same company for 25 years. That could be hazardous to your career. You're not your dad. You're not your mother. Unless you're in the armed forces or something like that, don't do it. It's hazardous to your career. Did that help with the definition?
Yes, most definitely. So it happens. It happened to me. I got laid off at some point. What now? What do I do?
Well, I can tell you the same thing happened to me in 2005. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had stopped trying. I was not imaginative or innovative. I wasn't adding value to the organization I was working for. It broke my boss's heart to do it, but it was absolutely the right thing to do because it changed me forever. After that, I became a business owner as opposed to an employee totally dependent on the organization in which I worked. The uses of adversity. What are the things that you need to do? Well, one, you need to do a deep internal core sample. Analyze what happened, what contributed to management's decision. Now, you may not like to do this, but I'm telling you, if you don't do it, and if you don't do it honestly and rigorously, and this is counterintuitive for us, particularly as North Americans, ask yourselves the following questions. Were you redundant? And if so, why? How did you contribute to your own redundancy? How did you not see what was coming down the pipe? Did you become passive in your role and settled in your role? Did you have a behavioral issue that you didn't address? Were you somebody that was prone to tantrums and rages, or prone to some kind of negative checking out and not paying attention or not participating in your role anymore? Were you too expensive and too senior for the role that you were in and the budget of the company that you were working in? And did you take that for granted that you would be there forever? Were you not adding enough value to make the case for keeping you? Were you doing what I was doing, which is just coasting in the job? Did you fall prey to negativity? Were you the Eeyore of the company? And somebody eventually said, you know what? The nuisance utility balance is not working for this guy. He's more of a nuisance than a utility to the organization. Get him out of here. Was it a personality clash with management where you, in a cocky and self-righteous way, thought, you're right, therefore you are not standing down? And could you not stand down so that in the battle that you lost, you would win the war long term? That's happened to people I know. Did the company choose a strategic direction that made your role invalid? And if that was the case, did you not anticipate that was the case? Were you sitting there waiting for a package? Did you spend enough time building strong internal relationships so that the people around you could advocate for the fact that the PMO is doing what it needs to? These guys really give us value. Did you fail to observe those warning signals? So those are the kinds of things that you need to ask yourself. Well, how do you make use of adversity? When it happens, do you fall in yourself? Of course, you're a human being with feelings, pride. You're going to feel absolutely depressed and debilitated and demoralized. But you know what? You need to get out of that and push forward. Resolve to do a complete professional profile and self-branding redesign. Work out who you are. Use the package I gave you. What are my values? What are my strengths? What is my professional SWOT? What are the kinds of things I need to rediscover and think about in myself and share with someone you trust that knows your work? Because they may say, Fred, you've only picked up half of what you actually do and are in the way of value and your career asset inventory. You're missing this. Make sure you share it with someone else. What you've got to do is find a way to reframe the product that is you, to reposition and redescribe and reconfigure what you know in the way of your skills, your experience, your training, your characteristics as an individual, your areas of expertise and special knowledge and awareness, your leadership style, your brand, and what it stands for. Now, I have known people who have lost their jobs not because they were incompetent or did the wrong thing, but because they did the right thing. Someone was a whistleblower who caught the CEO with his hand in the till. When she blew the whistle, she was terminated. Would you change that about your brand and what you stand for? She didn't, and I wouldn't advise it either. And if somebody asks the question and you want to say it in a diplomatic way, say, there are some things that I will not do that go against what I see to be right and wrong and good business practice. And all I can tell you is this: if certain things happen that are bad for shareholders, investors, funders, or the general public or staff, then I feel I have to say something. And anybody that is interviewing you is going to be moved by that and think, wow, that's a high integrity individual. So if your brand stands for integrity And that's a reason why you were taken out of your last role. Don't change your brand. Don't change it to suit whatever current trend there may be. Ensure that what your brand stands for is perpetual, sustainable, and imperishable as far as you're concerned. If we were to then talk about some of the other things that you would want to think of in the way of the use of adversity, reflect on what you really want to do. Sometimes when adversity comes, it pushes us to think about, did I really enjoy what I was doing for the last 5-10 years? Was I really passionately engaged? What kind of company do I really want to work for now? Or how do I want my role to be different to what it was before? These moments of tragedy, these moments when we get packaged out or unpackaged out, whatever the case may be, give us pause to reflect. Now, admittedly, you're in a depression and you're in an emotional crisis as this is happening. But you've got to keep your nose above the water. And part of that is to sit down and reflect on what's really important to you. And that's where things like the values part of that package and the career satisfaction part and the career SWOT part of the package and the career goal focus part of the package can save your life literally and professionally. All right? So use the adversity, that period of time, to go through that deep internal sounding of your core so that you then become more true to yourself as a professional as you find your way forward. And it may well be that short term you take a job you have to take to put bread on the table. But that doesn't stop you from still charting a career path that may take you to something bigger and better when you have the liberty to be able to move in that direction. Hopefully that helps a little bit, Cornelius.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that in the face of adversity, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody who you trust. Is adversity maybe the moment when you should also consider talking to a professional career coach like yourself?
Yes, it absolutely is.
And what can you do for us that the person whom we trust can't do for us?
We can sit with you. And what I would do is, you see that package of information that I gave you? It is one thing to fill it out for yourself and reflect on it on your own. It is an entirely different matter and a life-enhancing and transforming process when someone else is reflecting on it with you, asking you questions, probing more deeply, probing areas where you may not have fleshed out your skills or your abilities as comprehensively as you could have. Now, the career coach doesn't just work with you in a time of adversity, though that is a key moment in your career when you should really reach out to a career coach. But at the earliest stage, when you're trying to work out what your career direction should be, and as you go from stage to stage, using a career coach may not necessarily be something sustained all the way through, but as you go through transitional moments or as you go through stages where you're trying to frame your thoughts, that's where the value is added. But definitely, in a stage like this, get some career coaching because it can help you dig up out of that depression and see hope. What we give as career coaches is 3 things: clarity, hope, and a plan. If there's hope and a plan, but there's no clarity, then you're still operating without a GPS system. If you have clarity and a plan, but no hope, well, consider the implications of that. If you have a plan and no hope and no clarity, then you're like some projects I've managed over the years, Cornelius, which have fallen on their backsides into a ditch. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yes, absolutely it does. And of course, we will have a link to your website on the pm-podcast.com website as well, so that people can find you and choose you as their career coach.
And if I could just say one quick thing about that, and that is whatever you see in the way of prices that are cited there, many coaches will adjust them based on your financial circumstances. So be mindful of that with all career coaches. You can always negotiate with them what's affordable and bearable to you.
The second topic that I promised everybody would be very interested in is a simple, structured approach to personal growth. Before we start with that, and you tell us the various steps that you have here for us, how do these steps relate to the career optimization package, the template that you have given us?
Well, as it turns out, some of the tools that I did in that package were done a week ago, the last weekend, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. And I've really gone on a template development push over the last few weeks. So there may be a little bit of a dissimilarity, but in fact, they can work together very well indeed. They harmonize together, though there may not be precise alignment, Cornelius.
All right. Take us through the steps of a simple, structured approach to personal growth, please.
Okay, first, you need to work out what are some of your career end objectives. Now, you might think to yourself, well, what, for goodness sake, does that mean? We move from job to job almost organically without always putting a lot of thought into the long-term goals. If somebody were to do your career tribute, I used to use the word obituary, but that has an implication to it, like something died, probably you. But if somebody was to do at your retirement party a career tribute, what would you want them to talk about? It's different from person to person. One person might say, that woman was the heart and soul of innovation. She was so full of ideas. She brought so many wonderful, innovative changes into our organization, into our world, into our lives. That's what may drive that one person. Another person may want to hear at the end of their career that their legacy was, that guy made so much money, it was unbelievable. He made millions and millions of dollars. It was so impressive what he actually achieved financially. And if that's what does it for you, then that's what does it for you. Someone else may want to hear, he touched everybody around him. Their lives were touched by him. He didn't just do work. He actually helped make us better people than we were before we knew him. And I will never forget what he did for me when I was in trouble, or when I was going through a crisis in my marriage, or when I had a terrible health issue, or when I was in the most embarrassing of professional situations. And he gave me the cover I needed to be able to get through it, and the support that I needed. For someone else, it might be, well, that person drove a game change in the industry. They were respected by leaders all around the world. That was a profoundly gifted leader. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's got to be something that resonates with you. But you have to think in terms of what is the end game, the final outcome, the final result of your career. Now, why is that even important? Because what it does is it helps you then to do a work-back plan from where that is to where you are today, just like with a project. If a healthcare project that we are doing in where I am, for instance, I'm just going to make something up. It may not be anything like what we would do specifically. But say what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce the risk of cancer for women between the age of 18 and 35 by 75%, the incidence of this kind of cancer by the year 2020. Well, that is a remarkable outcome. And our work-back plan is all the projects and initiatives that are going to work together to achieve that signal and important goal. That's what you need to do with your career. So then determine what you're passionate about, build that into your plans. Identify what your strengths are as an individual and use the package I gave you. But there are also alternative things you can use to determine your strengths. There is that book, Strengths Finder 2.0. There's Myers-Briggs and other forms of psychometric testing that you can pay for online and do, and everyone adds something to your self-knowledge and your self-awareness, and they tell you about your strengths. Then, to get to that final outcome, you might want to imagine a single integrated career path or a couple of career paths that could get you there. Sometimes the career paths, if it's two separate ones, cross over. They cross over in interesting ways. And look down the pipe at 5 and 10-year milestone jobs or levels of proficiency you might want to have. So say I want to have that memory of me that I was somebody that changed the industry that I was in. Well, 5 years from now, looking down one career path, I want to be in a role where I might be product development individual at Apple or some other very highly innovative organization. And 10 years down the road, I want to be doing something in a particular area of the industry that will continue to drive that reputation and drive the change that I'm looking to be able to drive, so that when the final time, the final milestone, the career tribute period comes, I can hear those words spoken, knowing that I've mindfully and strategically and pragmatically and very, very deliberately moved my way through to that ultimate conclusion. In other words, what I'm trying to propose is don't be at the mercy of your career. You control it. You need to also perform a very rigorous reworking of your resume. Most people's resumes are terrible, including mine. All that they are is a chronological sequence of the things that we did in jobs that we had. There might be a certain amount, but not very much, which talks about the things we achieved. Saved X amount of dollars, increased this or that by this or that percentage. It doesn't really tell you about you. So we need to find more ways to show more of who we are as an individual. Your volunteer work will show some of that, especially your internal volunteer work. In your resume, you don't want to say, I attended meetings and participated in this or that process. You want to show about things you delivered, outcomes you achieved, things that could be measured, those smart targets, but the big smart targets, the ones that you can find, so that you can harvest the right resume line items. That's the advice I give all of my clients. Don't just pack up your resume with things that you did. Get the right resume line items. If you are transforming a business process in an organization and redesigning it, that's a big resume line item. What you do that is a profound resume line item is going to change your organization forever for the better. If somebody sees in your resume, and they are a struggling PMO director trying to make it work in a big, massive organization that may not be in favor of project management, if they see in your resume that you developed processes, methodologies that were scalable, that helped increase and improve project management as it was performed, but also found ways to customize these things, that person is going to snap you up immediately. Because you know what? After a certain point in time, everybody's resume looks the same. We did small, medium, and large projects. Somewhat complex, more complex, very complex projects. In the end, it's variations on the same themes. What differentiates us? The people that are differentiated are the people that do very, very worthwhile, but sometimes difficult volunteer work in the organization and externally, and the people that have the right resume line items that have been harvested and that have really pushed their organizations forward. Identify your skills and experiences and your qualifications that you would need to have those 5 and 10-year jobs that are 5 and 10 years from today. And then start charting, navigating your way to getting the skills and the experience and the qualifications so your company can pay for it and you can pay what they won't pay for, because you are on a plan that is part of your project plan for your career transition project. Do your gap analysis and work out what your resume says versus those 2 jobs that you're looking at down the pipe, and try to start filling those. And develop, as I've given you, a career project plan so that you can start moving in the direction of filling those gaps. Make sure you get in some good volunteer work in there. I think that's pretty critical. I'm looking, as I see resumes cross my desk, if I don't see volunteer work in there, it gives me a certain message about the individual. If I see volunteer work, I'm looking at a social conscience that is not just operating outside of the organization, it'll also be used inside of the organization. That's what I want. Try and get a coach and a mentor. Make sure you do your own annual development plan, and I've provided that template to you with your progress reviews to yourself. Commit yourself to a reading list, to growing and developing your mind so your thoughts are always open to fresh ideas. Make sure that you are someone's mentor, someone else's coach, and use the career journal that I've given you. So that's what I would say as far as those things are concerned, and the simple structured approach, Cornelius.
I have 2 final questions for you here, but before we get to those, do you have any final thoughts for us project managers?
Yes, I want to say just one final thought for us all to keep in mind. As we build our PM organizations, whatever And wherever we find ourselves, let us not forget that the value that we add is really significant. And let's make it even more significant. Let's step away as practitioners from cynicism. That so easily besets us. It takes us down into a ditch, and we can sometimes get stuck in a hole in our minds. And instead of doing that, let's commit ourselves to lifting the profile of the profession to the highest standards that we can each achieve in the way of excellence. The benefits to us, to our organizations, and to the profession itself are absolutely innumerable. So that's the final thought I'd want to leave people with.
All right. So here are my final two questions for you then. What is your number one tip for anyone who wants a career in project management, who wants to get into project management?
Be ambitious to understand the nuts and bolts of project management extremely well and be able to apply those things flexibly throughout your career. That's one. A second thing that I would say is this: focus on becoming an emotionally intelligent practitioner. That is key to progress at any stage, and especially when you're entering into the profession. What was the second question again, Cornelius?
Well, I haven't asked it yet. The second one is obviously the continuation of what we just talked about. What is your number one tip for anyone who is in project management and who wants to advance?
Remember your responsibility to the profession as a whole. You are not just a practitioner. You're an ambassador for an entire profession. Conduct yourself accordingly. If you want to be able to make progress in the organization and in the profession, pitch in and lend a hand. Volunteer. Find the chapter closest to you, become a member, and become somebody who volunteers to support it. It may be as a speaker at professional development days. It may be as somebody who is a volunteer helping with membership. It may be somebody who helps to organize events, reaches out to speakers, looks after the logistics. It doesn't matter what it is. You can get PDUs for it, but you also get a huge amount in return. I know this, Cornelius, is something you've been doing since 2005 in the PM podcast. It's been a volunteer activity of volunteer activities in the sense that nobody asked you to do it. You did it because it was a need that needed to be filled. But the benefit to you and the profession has been profound. Same thing for us. So at that stage, as a practitioner, to grow and to progress, remember those principles.
Dev, thank you so much for all the fantastic examples, tips, and ideas that you have given all of us to optimize our careers in project management.
I'm completely honored to have been asked to do this, and I am so grateful to you and the listeners for the chance to have done it.
And that was Dev Ramcharan with the third and final interview in our series on optimizing your project management career. And of course, if you're listening to this before the end of October 2014, don't forget to stop by at facebook.com/pmpodcast and participate to win one of the 4 premium career optimization packages that we are giving away. Otherwise, just go to pmpodcast.com/career, get the free one, and if you like it, try the premium one. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this quote from Sebastian Bach. The way I look at a solo project is that I create what I want with whomever I want. Until next time.